If I'm your coach, I don't want to be your friend. I want to be somebody you think, I'm not going to have a drink. I want to be somebody you fear of finding out.
But it is a strange decision to do a U-turn even before you've had a fight. Like normally, I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen people go back to their trainers, but normally it's you've gone to trainer B. It's not quite.
Dubois sacks Don Charles about 5 or 6 months ago, and then he signs with Tony Sims. Well, when I say recent, in the last 15 minutes, Daniel Dubois reunites with trainer Don Charles months after.
Boxing pros slam Daniel Dubois for reuniting with Don Charles. Dubois' choice to return to Charles has sent ripples through the boxing world. After his humbling defeat to Usyk, he parted ways with Charles, briefly teaming up with Tony Sims for a fresh perspective. Now, going back to his original trainer sparks debates about stability, leadership, and who truly guides Dubois' path as he works to restore his heavyweight legacy.
Daniel's dad got involved in any way, shape or form. Tony would say, no, I'm not playing that game. And Stanley knows his son, Daniel, so he'd have said he had to make a decision. I've either got to stay outside, which I can't, or step inside. So for him to go back to Don, it kind of, I love Don, but it kind of tells me that he's probably got more control over Don, or how Don deals with.
Johnny Nelson questions Daniel Dubois' choice to reunite with Don Charles. Returning to Charles after the defeat to Usyk and a brief stint with Tony Sims has left the boxing world puzzled. Nelson emphasizes that this decision exposes Dubois' indecision and immaturity, making him seem inexperienced and easily swayed. At a time when he should be focused on rebuilding, Dubois risks repeating past errors instead of progressing.
This move back again, whose decision is that? Is that his, or is it his old man's decision? Again, it's not. His old man's taking a lot of stick. His old man's new to the job in regards to us, in regards to the public. So, and I do feel for him, but some.
AO reflects on the fallout from Daniel Dubois' decisions. Leaving Don Charles for Tony Sims clearly upset those around him, and Oladipo suggests that Charles might have even refused to take him back. Dubois' reputation as a top fighter doesn't excuse the indecision and lack of respect for his team. This back and forth between camps underscores a troubling pattern of instability in his career.
Don was hurt by Daniel leaving and going to Tony Sims. So much so that I thought Don might say, no, you're not coming back. There's a part of me that was like, it wouldn't be too far-fetched or too crazy if Don was like, no, it's okay. But obviously, look, Daniel's a big name. Don wants to train the biggest names in boxing, so why would you not want?
Liam Goff reacts to Daniel Dubois' decision to return to Don Charles. Heading back to Charles has left many in the boxing world puzzled. Goff highlights that despite being a big-name fighter, Dubois often showed disrespect toward Charles, ignoring guidance at weigh-ins and in the corner. This reunion raises questions about Dubois' attitude, maturity, and whether he truly appreciates the guidance of those shaping his career.
He's now decided to go back to Don Charles. I mean, what is going on here? This is strange, and I don't want to sound harsh on Don Charles. I get it, Daniel Dubois is a big name, he generates a lot of money, but Don Charles was always, Daniel Dubois to me at times was almost disrespectful to Don Charles. When you saw them at weigh-ins and stuff like that, he never appeared to really take what Don Charles was saying seriously whenever it was.
Counterpunch Boxing calls out Daniel Dubois' handling of setbacks. Observing his losses, they argue that Dubois often deflects responsibility instead of learning from mistakes. Leaning on excuses or trying to save face after the defeat to Usyk shows a lack of accountability. At this level, true champions confront failures, reflect honestly, and adjust. Dubois' pattern of switching camps points to deeper issues in discipline and decision-making.
And they just, hey, you got to pay for it because I lost. I don't think that's cool at all, and in fact, I think that's a cop-out. That's just something to do to save face, to make yourself look good because you're looking for an excuse why you didn't perform the best of your ability. Sometimes you got to look in the mirror, and I think and I hope that's what the case was in this situation, but I'm glad to hear.
Chatty the Champ questions Daniel Dubois' return to Don Charles after months apart. Dubois' decision to reunite with his old trainer has raised eyebrows. Critics suggest this move highlights indecision and instability, especially following the high-profile defeat to Usyk and his brief stint with Tony Sims. At this stage of his career, such choices risk undermining confidence in Dubois' professionalism and his ability to make consistent, mature decisions.
Has reverted back to his old coach, Don Charles. Now this was a shock to me, right? You know, it's very confusing. I don't know why he would go back to his old coach. His coach did well for him, of course, you know, won the IBF World Champion with Don Charles.
Dominic Ingley highlights the harsh realities of boxing careers, and Daniel Dubois' situation fits the pattern. Fighters often move between camps, seeking short-term gains before pointing fingers when things go wrong. Dubois' recent switch back to Don Charles after splitting with Tony Sims underscores this cycle, exposing tensions in his camp and raising concerns about his judgment and long-term focus in the heavyweight division.
It's very applicable to boxing. They choose you, fighters choose you. Then they use you to get where they need to be. Then they accuse you when everything goes wrong. And when they've left and gone somewhere else, then they start to abuse you by doing interviews slagging you off. And that happens more times.
Duke McKenzie highlights the value Don Charles brings to Daniel Dubois' camp. Charles knows the fighter inside out, his habits, mindset, and how to get the best from him. McKenzie warns that parting ways now could be disastrous, as Dubois risks losing the structure and motivation that helped him reach elite levels. At this stage, experience and consistency matter more than flashy new setups, and abandoning a proven coach could destabilize Dubois' career. After the defeat to Usyk and his brief stint with Tony Sims, this move raises serious questions about judgment and direction.
I think it's about.
Johnny Nelson criticizes Daniel Dubois' apparent lack of discipline before big fights. Throwing a party instead of focusing on preparation shows shocking disrespect to Don Charles, whose role is to guide Dubois to the top. Nelson calls this behavior foolish, even bordering on a street mentality, which has no place in world-class boxing. Such actions risk undermining team trust and focus, highlighting Dubois' tendency to make impulsive choices rather than respecting the process needed to succeed at the highest level.
Now if my man's putting a party on and saying we ain't fighting unless all the crew come in on fight night, he's an idiot. I don't know him personally, so I can't, but what I'm seeing is foolishness. How can you be so stupid? That's street mentality. This is world-class boxing.
Carl Froch emphasizes the danger of Daniel Dubois' pre-fight mindset. Froch points out that boxing is brutal, life-and-death territory in the ring, not a social scene. By being in party mode, Dubois shows a lack of seriousness for the sport's risks. Froch frames boxing as a warrior's domain, where preparation, focus, and mental readiness are everything. Dubois' casual approach undermines his potential, highlighting that success requires more than talent. It demands discipline, respect for the craft, and understanding the stakes before stepping into battle.
As you're not in party mode, you're in fight mode. I could be walking to a certain death mode here. This is the hurt game. This is a dangerous, hard sport where people get seriously injured in there. And when you're fighting, you want to be in the mode of fight mode. Let's go, I'm going to battle, I'm going to war, I'm a fucking warrior. I'm going in there to do some damage and potentially getting some damage done to me.
Daniel Dubois projects confidence in his comeback and eagerness for 2026 matchups. While he expresses a readiness to fight anyone, including Tyson Fury, his words contrast sharply with the criticism surrounding his preparation and camp choices. Dubois' determination is clear, but experts warn that mentality alone won't fix repeated indecision with coaches. To rebuild his reputation, he must combine his hunger with structured guidance and discipline, or risk setbacks even against opponents he believes he can handle.
Yeah, bring it on. I can't wait. If Frank makes that fight, then I'll be delighted. I'll jump at the opportunity. But yeah, whoever steps up, I'm ready. Can't wait to have my first fight of 2026, man.
Tony Sims emphasizes Daniel Dubois' hunger and readiness to return. Dubois is laser focused on fight day, constantly talking about getting back in the ring. Sims paints a picture of a fighter eager to rebuild and make his mark among the heavyweight elite. While Dubois' energy and determination are undeniable, critics point out that excitement alone isn't enough. After splitting from Don Charles, briefly joining Tony Sims, and now returning to Charles, questions about discipline and decision-making linger. The heavyweight division is stacked, and missteps can be costly. Sims underscores that Dubois must channel his drive strategically, combining raw ambition with focus, structure, and professional guidance if he wants to reclaim credibility and climb back toward world-class contention.
Like you said, he just wants a fight day. He's raring to go. It's all he talks about now. I want to get a fight day, get in the ring. It's going to be an exciting period for all the heavyweights now. I'm expecting to see a lot of the top heavyweights will fight each other.
Harlem Eubank praises Daniel Dubois' fearless mentality. According to Eubank, Dubois approaches challenges with unwavering belief, unafraid of anything in front of him. This fearlessness can serve as a strong foundation, but it must be balanced with discipline and smart camp decisions. After the defeat to Usyk, Dubois' back and forth between trainers highlights a worrying inconsistency. Eubank's point is clear. While belief is critical, maintaining focus, respect for coaching, and structured preparation are essential for turning courage into results at the elite heavyweight level. Without this balance, raw confidence risks being overshadowed by tactical errors, missed opportunities, and the perception that Dubois hasn't matured into a fully professional fighter ready for top-tier competition.
I think Daniel, he's the type of fighter, he's got that belief, he's not scared of anything that's in front of him, and that is something that will hold you in good stead.
Simon Jordan weighs in on a potential Fury versus Dubois matchup. Comparing Dubois to Anthony Joshua, Jordan highlights how quickly fighters can be exposed at the elite level. He notes that Joshua, despite past successes, has vulnerabilities opponents exploit, and a similar scenario could unfold for Dubois if he isn't fully prepared. This underscores the importance of not just physical skill, but also mental readiness, strategic coaching, and experience. Dubois' recent camp changes, from splitting with Don Charles to briefly joining Tony Sims and now returning to Charles, further complicate matters. Jordan warns that any fight against top heavyweights like Fury will punish indecision, making consistent preparation and professional guidance crucial for Dubois' next chapter.
Been in the camp for a year and a half that AJ's done, and said that as soon as someone lands one on him, he's going to have a problem. And you wouldn't have it, no one else would have it, and you used Jermaine Franklin, you used Robert Helenius, you used Otto Wallin, and you used Francis Ngannou. And I said to you, as much as I like Anthony Joshua, I think he's been a superstar for himself in certain aspects of the sport. If he gets a live one in there, I think he's going to get knocked out, which is what happened. So I don't want to see what happened to Deontay Wilder happening to Anthony Joshua.
Johnny Nelson discusses Daniel Dubois' upcoming fight mindset. Nelson predicts an intense battle where Dubois and his opponent have no personal animosity but will bring maximum effort. He notes that Dubois is responsive and coachable, yet his history of switching camps from Don Charles to Tony Sims and back adds uncertainty. Nelson suggests the fight may end before the distance, reflecting Dubois' aggressive style. However, he emphasizes that the outcome will depend not only on talent, but also on discipline, strategic preparation, and mental focus, areas where Dubois' previous indecisions have cast doubt. Fans can expect a high-stakes clash, but success will hinge on whether Dubois has finally stabilized his camp and approach.
As long as he has to be to his opponent, and Daniel Dubois will say what someone's whispering in his ear. But these two guys, ain't no hate, don't bad blood there. But it'll be a good fight. I don't think it'll go the distance, and I'm looking forward to it.
Derek Chisora critiques Daniel Dubois' approach following the Usyk loss. He argues that Dubois and his team focused on the wrong details, overanalyzing instead of maintaining a killer mindset. Chisora stresses that elite fighters surround themselves with killers and train like killers, holding nothing back. Dubois' indecision with trainers, splitting from Don Charles, briefly working with Tony Sims, and now reuniting with Charles, mirrors the lack of consistency Chisora highlights. To succeed against top heavyweights like Tyson Fury, Dubois must adopt a disciplined, focused, and relentless approach, combining raw aggression with smart preparation, respect for coaching, and mental toughness, rather than relying on reactive or inconsistent strategies.
We're going off the scale of body show, you're a liar and all this for no reason. And what happened now?